Second Peter 2, 2 Peter 2, verse 4. 2 Peter 2, 4. For if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell, and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. Now, this is, of course, Noah's flood. That's where he washed out the giants in Genesis 6. And so this is, he called it the old world. Now, sure, there's so much information to give you here. I'm going to try to sort through it in some kind of a fashion that makes sense. Job 22. Eighth, yes. Eighth person from who? Yeah, eighth, meaning generation from Adam. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. So the old world ended, and so you needed something new, and that was the eighth man. Job 22, verse 15. Now, what perished was the old world. Now, it didn't say the old earth. It said the old world. So there's a difference. Job 22:15. Hast thou marked the old way which wicked men have trodden? Now, you should go back and observe good men, but he said you should also notice the wicked ones. Wicked men have trodden, which were cut down out of time, whose foundation was overflown with a flood. Who would that be? Well, obviously Noah's in Noah's age, but you don't know about any of those men. But you can mark their way. They rebelled against a preacher of righteousness, Noah, and so be careful rebelling against a preacher of righteousness. Not that you'll find many anymore, but now you could go even farther back than that. There's another flood, the Lucifer's flood, and you've been given some information about that, and we'll get more of it in a minute. Luke 17. Luke 17, verse 26. Luke 17:26, he says, "And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man." So, like the same thing that was going on during Noah's day will be the same when the Son of Man comes. 27. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. No, them all. It's already, the malls are already destroyed. I tell you what's going on in Noah's day. They had big malls. However, now notice he's destroying, but why is he destroying? Back in our text in 2 Peter 2, 2 verse 4, God spared not the old world. He's referring to Noah here, but notice what he says about it. Verse 4, for if God spared not the angels that sinned. The context to this Noah's flood is angels sinning. That's what you find in Genesis 6, the sons of God and the daughters of men. That's that intermarrying from an angelic being that comes to earth and takes a body, and in order to have a marriage like a human would. Genesis 6. Genesis 6. Here's these angels that sin. Genesis 6:1. First four words are the best in the passage. And it came to pass. Good thing it's past. Well, it's not past. It's coming up more rapidly. We know that it will be repeating itself in the tribulation. And probably some of that mess is still going on. He says, and it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God, those are the angels, saw the daughters of men that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh. In addition to what? The sons of God. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. So during the days of Noah, there was giants because of this thing, and also after that. Those giants were popping up again over and over. You find them all through the Old Testament. The reason he tells you right here is because of the sons of God and the daughter of men intermixing there. That was the reason for it. Look at it in Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11, verse 7. By faith, Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, that is, rain, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world and became heir of righteousness, which is by faith. Now, what did he condemn? Not the earth, the world. Now, you have to notice the difference between these two words, the word earth and the word world. World is a sinful society. Earth is a ground you walk on. There was a sinful society prior to Adam, and God cursed it and flooded it. There's also growing up in after Adam, it seems like that thing just bloomed again. And God said, I'll not have it again. We'll flood it out. And he did. Then he said, next time I'll just burn it out. And that's what's coming next. Now, he said in our passage in Genesis 6:3, he said that he also is flesh. Now, he also, probably because of the way it's worded, is talking about the giant that shows up, but it could be talking about the angelic being that comes down. But it says in Peter that those angelic beings he cast into hell and reserved in chains of darkness. Okay, so it's probably not the angelic being, it's probably the offspring, the giant, that is part flesh, part human, part angelic flesh and part human, a half breed. And he said, I'm going to limit their lifespan to how long? 120 years. Now that's good to know because you'll find out if somebody's a Bible reader by that. So the standard line is this: God limited the lifespan of the giant to 120 years, and he cleaned up the earth in 120 years in Noah's day. He did not. He didn't have patience with them for that long. Here's where you find it by Bible study. Genesis 5, verse 32. Genesis 5, verse 32. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth, one begetting 3 sons. They were triplets, just like you find Adam, Seth, and he's got 3 sons. But this is a triplet thing because he doesn't know his wife again, and she conceive and bear. This is 3 at a time. He's 500 years old when this happens. So we can do math. I mean, I can do simple math. I can't do any of that higher math. Look at it in chapter 7, verse 11. In the 600th year of Noah's life, and the 2nd month, 17th day of the month, the same day where all the fountains of the great deep broke up and the windows of heaven were open. There's the flood coming down. When did it come down? 100 years after he had his children. So God did not wait 120 years. He knocked out the giants early. But you know what he did? He said, I'm going to make a rule. No giant will be allowed to live longer than 120 years. Because that's going to come back into play, because that doesn't stop the giant thing from being produced. those angelic beings that are in the second heaven can still do this and do. But the offspring, God says, I will not allow to live longer than 120 years. And it did happen over and over in the Old Testament. You read about the famous one is Goliath, a giant. These giants, God's already set the rule. I'm not going to allow them to live longer than 120 years. He's not referring to the ones that were living in Noah's day. He's referring to any of them that live after Noah's day. The ones that were alive in Noah's day, he wiped out in 100 years. He said, I'm going to cut your life short. That's what Job said. They were cut down out of time. They should have been able to live to 120. God said, no, I'm not going to have any more patience with it. You've crossed the line too many times. After 100 years, you're done. For those. This old world reference. Look at it in Genesis 1, verse 2. Genesis 1, verse 2. And this is where I have to switch my notes. Genesis 1, 2. I've given you all this information before. However, it's good to know. And you need it for where we're going tonight. Let me get this thing blown up so I can read it. It's tough getting old. Genesis 1, 2. He says, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So there's a flood right there. The earth has been flooded prior to Noah's day. And this is Genesis 1 is an account of God refurbishing that earth and pulling it up out of its watery grave. Now, the earth that was before, that same basic structure was there, however, with some differences. Look at it in Psalm 48, verse 2. It says, beautiful for situation is the joy of the whole earth, Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. So the whole universe is shaped like a mountain, and it's got sides to it. And at the very top is the city of the great king. There's where God dwells. And so this is where Lucifer says, I'll set my throne above the stars of heaven, above God, and he'll be like the Most High. Well, that's a pure description of this, what he's saying right here, Mount Zion on the sides of the north, the city of the great king. He wants to get up above that. The Most High is God. If it's shaped like a mountain and on the top of it is the city of God, that is the Most High you can get. If you were to climb Mount Everest, you'd get to the top of it, and that'd be the most high you could get. I wouldn't do it, but I like to read the stories about somebody who's dumb enough to do it. Isaiah 66. Isaiah 66, 1, he says, thus saith the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house you will build unto me, and where is the place of my rest? So, where God sits, the city of the great king, is at the very top. It's the Most High. And just like the people we do work for, they have them a little ottoman they can prop their feet on. God does too. It's called earth. That was one of the things he created prior to Genesis 1. Prior to Genesis, the recreation in Genesis 1, verse 2 or 3 on down, you find him recreating, but there was creation going on prior to that. That's not the only time God created. Angels were there. They were created before that. Okay, there's lots of things that were created prior to what we find in the creation account in Genesis. One of them was the earth. Now, that earth isn't the same one that Adam got. They're not the same time frame. But that was originally his footstool. And of course, Lucifer rebelled. And when he did, God kicked his footstool out. And he kicked it off into, he liked him a waterfront view. And he kicked it off into the great deep. And when he did, it bobbed around in the or on the water there. In chapter 3, we'll get there eventually. In chapter 3 of 2 Peter, we'll find more info on that. It bobs around on this water, and then eventually it sunk down into the water. And that's what he pulls up in Adam's day to recreate for human existence. Uh, look at Ezekiel 31. Ezekiel 31, verse 9. So pay attention to wording. You know, I am really a stickler on this thing, and because of that, I'm about half crazy. But I say, from me, I see this clearly. This is speaking of Lucifer when he was ruling a globe, and he says here, I have made him fair by the multitude of his branches, so that all the trees of Eden that were in the garden of God envied him. Okay, so I say, see that capitalization? That's a name, a proper noun. It's a name of something. I say his first universe, this first earth, was called Eden. It was not called Earth. It was called Eden. And that's where Lucifer dwelled, and that's where he ruled from. When he recreates the earth for Adam, he puts Adam in a beautiful place, and to rub it in the devil's nose, he calls it the thing that his globe was called, Eden. No wonder Lucifer shows up there. Look at it in Ezekiel 28, Ezekiel 28, verse 1. The word of the Lord came unto me again, saying, Son of man, say unto the prince of Tyrus, Thus saith the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am God, and I sit in the seat of God in the midst of the seas. Yet thou art a man, and not God, though thou set thine heart as the heart of God. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. There is no secret that they can hide from thee. With thy wisdom, with thine understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures. This is Lucifer. He's actually doing this. He's getting gold and silver. People really make fun of the verse that says, the love of money is the root of all evil. They say, you can't say that's the root of all evil. Well, the Bible says. If God says it, I can say it. I don't have to understand it, I can say it. But there you can get some understanding from it. Things, I say this, things physical and spiritual, when the kingdom of God and kingdom of heaven are here at the same time, have a reality. For instance, there's a tree in the tree of life there in the eternity and in the millennium. And then the leaves are for the healing of the nations. I ain't go to eat no leaves and get no nation healed. But there's something physical has a spiritual implication to it. Just like in the Garden of Eden, something physical could give them sin. Imagine that. So this is where he was. This is the earth that he was given to rule, called Eden. And so then the question comes up, how long was it here? Dr. Ruckman has one explanation for it, and I've got another one. Dr. Ruckman puts it here at 2,000 years. Or he says that Lucifer ruled for 2,000 because that would give Jesus, when he shows up, the Israelites could have accepted him as their king. The tribulation could have begun immediately, and then the 2,000 plus 4,000 would put you at 6,000. Then 1,000 years from millennium would put you at 7. That's the way he has it designed. I have a different one. Deuteronomy 11. Deuteronomy 11, verse 21. Deuteronomy 11:21. That your days may be multiplied in the days of your children in the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers to give them, as the days of heaven upon the earth. Heaven has different days than the earth does. Why? Genesis 1:1, in the beginning God created not Adam's earth, heaven and earth. Earth there is being said in the generic. Here's how you know. Let me find it. Look at it, Genesis 1:10. Genesis 1:10. And God called the dry land earth. There he's named it. But he didn't name it till a long time down the road. He's named it on the third day. For 3 days it has no name. Notice something else. Look at the word earth. It's a capital. Look at the word earth in verse 1, lowercase. One is a proper name, one is not. One is a generic. In verse 1, it's a generic. In verse 10, it's been given a name, a proper name. God named it earth. And let's see, that's probably as far as we need to go on that. Now let me get back to where we were. I got so many notes on so many different pages. Okay, 2 Peter 2, 2 Peter 2, verse 4. He says, the world that then was. Okay, so the world system, the society of sin and sinners at the time of Noah is what he's talking about God flooding out. Now there he's not talking about the Lucifer's earth and the time that God did it with Lucifer. He's talking about the time he did it with Noah because he names Noah. It's clear there. Look at it in Genesis 10. Focus in on the word world. Genesis 10. Genesis 10:25. And now I got to find another set of notes. Let me find that. Two words you have to know. One is earth and one is world. This opens up a whole nother can of worms. This is going to be a long one. This opens up a whole nother can of worms because I take the Bible just as it says it until it tells me to take it a different way. The Bible's for the common man, the simple man. It will use the same word different ways, but it's laid out. God's designed the Bible to be read from Genesis to Revelation. As you proceed, if a word changes, he'll let you know, or he'll add to the word so you have a bigger definition of it. But until he does that, you're to use what he's already given you. Genesis 10, verse 25. And unto Eber were born two sons. The name of one was Peleg. For in his days was the earth divided, and his brother's name was Joktan. I say this is the continental drift. This is where the continents break apart and move, and that's why we have different continents and not one island. If you'll notice in Genesis 1, he creates it, and it's an island. All of earth is an island. And he says, let dry land appear, not let pockets of land appear. That's what we have now. So originally, he scooped out water and dumped it on this globe and said, let dry land pop up. Well, that's an island. Something happened to split it all up like it is now. And I say it's right here because earth, up until now, has always been the ground you walk on. It's not been used to refer to people or a people group. And there's too many verses for me to give them all to you. Look at, just for fun, chapter 1, verse 24. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature. Okay, we know what he's talking about, that ground. He says it in 25 again. He says, and God made the beast of the earth after his kind and after their kind. Verse 26, earth again. It's always talking about ground, dirt. And if you get my notes on it, it's used probably 40 times. The word earth is used from here till you get to chapter 11. And it's always ground. It's not people. It's not a people group. So we'll know the difference. Earth means something you walk on, but not people. I mean, you could walk on people, but some people do. That's not the way it's being used in the Bible. In the Bible, world is the people, earth is the ground. Look at it in Psalm 9, verse 8. Here he's going to tell you what world is. Now, I couldn't spend the time to go through and give you all the references for world, but you can do that. Not Genesis, Psalms 9, verse 8. He shall judge the world in righteousness. He shall minister judgment to the people in uprightness. So, world, he's identified as the people. Look at it in chapter 18, verse 13, Psalm 18:13. The Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. Yea, he sent out his arrows and scattered them. He shot, he shot out lightnings and discomfited them. The channels of the world, the channels of water were seen, and the fountains of the world were discovered at thy rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of thy nostrils. Now, do what? Mm-hmm. Foundations of the world. Correct. That's not earth. That's a world system that's sinful. He blasted it and he discovered the root of everything. We'll get to the story of Lucifer's fall. With Lucifer's fall, it wasn't simply a fall and God turned him into a demonic creature. There was a warfare that happened. Obviously, what happened is this. Man, I really need 3 hours for this. What happened is Lucifer was ruling this globe. This globe is called Eden. And as the creatures that were under his rule would praise both God and him, any kind of a praise would turn into silver and gold. And it went into his treasures. And I believe what happened is that Jesus would come down from time to time and collect the treasures to take back to his city. Just like the reverse happens in the book of Job, the sons of God have to appear before him 3 times or so many times in the year. It was in reverse. And so he came down to collect his treasures. And when he did, the devil decided he was going to off him. And when he did, there was a warfare that happened. And the devil thought he won. But then God the Father came down. He says he made darkness pavilions under his feet. And he came down, and there's a great warfare. There's a whole chapter on it. What? Yes. Saved his darling. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Psalm 22, verse 27. He says, all the ends of the world shall remember and turn unto the Lord. Now, that's not the earth. Is the ground going to remember and turn to God? When did it turn from him? Okay, it's the people on it, the world system. And they will remember. Even in hell, they'll lift up their eyes and see him. He says, all of them will behold me. And turn unto the Lord, and all the kindreds of the nations shall worship before thee. Kindreds, that's people. Chapter 24, Psalm 24, verse 1. Chapter 24, verse 1. The earth is the Lord's. I guess so he made it. And the fullness thereof, what's been produced from it. The world, the people, and they that dwell therein. The world system. Are you living in the world system or not? Paul says you're not of the day, but of the night. He says all around you is night, and we're not of the night. We've been taken out of it. He says you've been given the divine nature and escaped this world. Now, so you're not of this world. The world is the sinful society that we're in, or that's around us. Look at it in Proverbs 8. Proverbs 8, verse 26. Proverbs 8 is a proverb of wisdom being personified. He said, while as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. Now, isn't that interesting? He didn't say dust of the earth. He said dust of the world. Why did he say that? Because that's what the world is made of. In Genesis 1, God Genesis 1, 2 or 2, God forms man out of the dust. When he sins, when he formed man, he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became, the classification of God, a living soul. After he sinned, he was no longer a living soul. God said to him at the curse, dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return. He changed his identification of humanity. Humanity is dust. David says it in another place. He says he remembers our frame is but dust. All we are is mud. Isaiah 13. Isaiah 13, verse 11. Isaiah 13, 11. He says, I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity. Now, the real smart people, I say that uh, tongue in cheek, the theologians will tell you the Jews writing this have a writing style called a hemiany. And what that means is they'll say the same thing different ways over and over. It's a form of poetry for them. So there you see it. Punish the world, the wicked. Okay, he's saying the same thing. He's just said it a different way. Um, we don't have to have some big long name for what it is. We can just see it in plain English. He says, I'll punish the world for their evil. Obviously, not the ground. The wicked for their iniquity. I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease. I will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. There he's dealing out punishment, and it's a punishment to people, not to the ground. Isaiah 14, 17. You know what's in Isaiah 14? That's the fall of Lucifer. And here's a part of it people don't connect, but it's there. Isaiah 14, verse 17. That made the world. Now, what is world? We've identified it as a society, a sinful society of people. Now, obviously, there were no people. God hadn't formed humans yet, but there was something there. There were beings. We find them in Jude. They kept not their first estate. Angelic beings that God allowed to run on this globe for Lucifer to rule over. He says in verse 17, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof. So Lucifer's planet had cities on it that opened not the house of his prisoners. That's not a God thing. You find all of the Old Testament laws of God. Nowhere in there does he have a prison. He has punishment all the way up to execution, but no prison. That's demonic. What Lucifer was doing. And that's the same context of I'll ascend above the stars. Look at in chapter 18, Isaiah 18, verse 3. Isaiah 18:3. All ye inhabitants of the world and dwellers on the earth, as though they're two separate things. Hmm. Dwellers on the earth. That's the world, the inhabitants of the world, inhabiting that system. See ye, when he lifteth up an enzyme on the mountains, and when he bloweth a trumpet, hear ye. We got in Revelation 3. Revelation 3, verse 10. Revelation 3:10. He says, because thou, speaking to one of the churches, he says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Now, if it's coming on all the world and it tries anybody who's part of the world and he's keeping someone from it, they're not part of the world. Because the verse says it will try everybody who's uh, try all of the world. So someone there has escaped the world system. Hmm. Look at it in chapter 13. Chapter 13, verse 3. And I saw one of his heads, as it were, wounded to death. This is the Antichrist becoming the son of perdition. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast, not at the beast. There's a difference. If I wondered at something, that could be bad or it could be good. Could be full of wonder, like what in the world just happened? You know, the house blows up next door to me, I'm going to wonder about it. Or is that a meth lab or that's full of wonder? Okay, that's wondering at something. But if I wonder after it, then I'm following after it. And my wonder is connected to it. So these people that are wondering after the beast, he says, all the world, that's that sinful society that's part of the Antichrist kingdom. And they're wondering when that thing is healed, there's a sign and a lying wonder. You know, they're going to go after it and buy into it. Look at chapter 17. 17, verse 8. Oh, I forgot I'm on my side notes, not the main notes. Revelation 17, verse 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. That is, there's three tenses to him. He was, because he was Judas Iscariot. He is not at the time of writing, because he went to his own place. Yet is, he's still there and he's about to come out. All three tenses. So that's the world and the earth. And now there's another side of this world that we've got to get a hold of. Let me switch notes. Go to oh, did I not put it in here? Well, we can find it real quick. Let's see. Go to Revelation. I think it says it three times in Revelation. Um, Revelation 13. Revelation 13, verse 8. He says, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. So, now we've defined world as something. World is a sinful society. Now, when was the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world? Well, when did the sinful society begin? Adam and Eve sinned, and a lamb was slain. That's him. Look at it in chapter 17, Revelation 17, verse 8. Oh, I did give you all these verses. I just didn't identify what I was reading. Oh, yeah, I've taught it all before. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell upon the earth shall wonder, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. So he keeps telling you the foundation of the world, and you can identify it. That's when sin entered. He says it in Romans, for as by one man sin entered into the earth, the world, the sinful society. Okay, so that gets us back to 2 Peter. 2 Peter 2. 2 Peter 2, verse 5. And spared not the old world. Now it makes sense, doesn't it? That sinful society living in Noah's day, he did not spare them. Matter of fact, he took them out early. He took them out 20 years before their lifespan was supposed to be over. The old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. Now, this is a little different than your next chapter over, and I should wait till we get there, but I'm going to go there. But while we're talking about the same thing, not Genesis, 2 Peter 3, 2 Peter 3. 2 Peter 3, verse 2. Drop down to verse 3. Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lust. This is how you can identify them. If they're gap deniers, I'm not going to be that harsh. I'm being facetious. Verse 4. And saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. Now, he's put a timestamp on it here. This is different than we read about in chapter 2. Chapter 2, he told you the timestamp was Noah and the angels that sinned during Noah's day. But now he's changed it. He's backed up even farther. The creation. That you find in Genesis 1. He says things began from the creation. He said, okay, I'll tell you about the creation. Verse 5. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old. The heavens are not the same age as the earth. Heavens are of old. Notice he said heavens plural, not heaven singular. In Genesis 1, the recreation that he gives to Adam is where he creates heavens plural. But it starts out in verse 1 as heaven singular. And you know how he makes heavens plural? He divides up the singular. He splits it up and spreads it out. Okay, were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water. Okay, so now he's lost most people. But we talked about it. That's Lucifer's earth that was out of the water and in the water. Why? Because he kicked his footstool out. When he did, he kicked it into the great deep, and it bobbed there for a little while and then sunk. Verse 6, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. That is, it overflowed. For a while it bobbed, and then it sunk down and perished. But the heavens and earth, now he's talking about not world, he's talking about heaven and earth, which are now by the same word are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. Then he goes on, and it's going to get deep. I'm going to save the rest of that for when we get to that chapter. But that's the difference in chapter 2 and chapter 3. Chapter 3 is talking about Lucifer's planet he ran. In chapter 2, he's talking about Noah, and he names him and identifies not heaven and earth, but world. That's what he's speaking to. And that's who perished in Noah's day. Okay, we made it through one verse. What time have we gotten to? Yeah, we probably better stop it there. All right, we'll pick up at the next verse, verse 2 Peter 2, verse 6 next time.